quilting patterns. That means that today we'll discover all about what's called line symmetry and point symmetry. When a line can be drawn through the middle of a figure which divides the figure into two congruent parts, a line of symmetry has been created. Both sides are a mirror image of each other. For instance, take a look at these two examples. The first shape has a vertical line of symmetry. In other words, it has a line up and down which divides it into two equal or congruent parts. Our second shape has a horizontal line of symmetry. It has a line that moves across the figure and divides it into two equal or congruent parts. Many objects have more than one line of symmetry. Let's look at a few samples. In this example, we see two lines of symmetry, a horizontal line of symmetry and a vertical line of symmetry. The next sample shows four lines of symmetry, a horizontal, a vertical, as well as two diagonal lines of symmetry. The last sample shows an object with six lines of symmetry. You can count them with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. There's another type of symmetry called point symmetry. Point symmetry is created when an object is turned about a central point and it looks the same with each turn. Each time I turn this figure about this central point, it looks the same. See? Here's another example. When I turn this figure about a central point, I again have a point of symmetry. Not all shapes have a line or point of symmetry like this shape. A line cannot be drawn anywhere through the shape which will divide it into two equal or congruent parts, nor is there a central point about which to rotate it. This shape is non-symmetrical. Some objects have both point and line symmetry. Look at these examples which we saw earlier. Each has line symmetry as well as point symmetry. And to demonstrate this, I'll place a thumbtack in the middle of the figure. Notice that I can turn this figure about a central point and it still looks the same with each turn. Now look at this figure which we saw earlier. Again, I'll place the thumbtack in the middle of the figure. I can turn it about a central point and the shape is still the same with each turn. Okay, let's have some fun. Let me show you how to create quilting patterns. The object of this activity is to create one or more lines of symmetry in each pattern. I'll begin by taking a square background piece of construction paper. I've marked all the lines of symmetry. That means I have a vertical, a horizontal, and two diagonal lines of symmetry. The reason for marking these lines of symmetry is so that I can line my other shapes along these lines to keep them straight. Normally, I would make these lines of symmetry just dark enough to be able to see them. But since you need to see them on the TV screen, I've made them darker than usual. I've placed 2-inch black squares on each corner of my background. Notice that the corners nearest the center of the large square touch each of my diagonal lines of symmetry. Then I placed another 2-inch black square in the center of my large square. Again, this square touches each of the diagonal lines of symmetry. Then I placed 4 right isosceles triangles against each of the 4 sides of the large square. Notice that each of the right angles of the triangles touches either the vertical or the horizontal lines of symmetry. This completes this pattern. Now let's find the lines of symmetry in this pattern. We have 4 lines of symmetry. Here's the vertical, the horizontal, and the two diagonal lines of symmetry. Let's now look at 3 examples of different patterns and discover how many lines of symmetry we can find. In the first pattern, we have 2 lines of symmetry. I can see a horizontal line here that creates 2 congruent or equal parts, and I can see a vertical line of symmetry here that also shows 2 congruent or equal parts. In this sample, I again have a horizontal and a vertical line of symmetry. I also have 2 diagonal lines of symmetry. Notice that this triangle would lie exactly on this triangle if I folded it diagonally. And this triangle would lie on this triangle. In our final example, we again have 4 lines of symmetry. A horizontal, vertical, and 2 diagonal lines of symmetry. My students love to create quilting patterns. I hope you have a great time creating your own patterns. And remember, you must have at least 1 line of symmetry. See you next time when we'll learn all about tessellations. Whoa!